Good morning and welcome to this week's episode of KidsPoint. I'm Austin and I'm so excited to have you tuning in with us this week. Each week we learn a story from the Bible and we know that if it's in the Bible that we can trust that it's true. So let's get ready to learn about Jesus. If there's someone sitting next to you, give them a high five and let's get started.
By faith, not by sight. 2 Corinthians 5:7. I live by faith, not by sight. 2 Corinthians 5:7. Faith comes by hearing, and hearing the word of God. Use your faith, believe and speak. Faith is like a seed, make it grow, make it grow. Faith is like a rope, don't let go, don't let go. Faith comes by hearing, and hearing the word of God. Use your faith, believe and speak. Faith is like a seed, make it grow, make it grow. Faith is like a rope, don't let go, don't let go. Get loose. Hearing and hearing the word of God. Use your faith, believe and speak. Faith is like a seed, make it grow, make it grow. Faith is like a rope, don't let go, don't let go. Break it down. I live by faith, not by sight. 2 Corinthians 5:7.
Hey everyone, my name is Brittany and we're so excited you are joining us today. Today we're going to be talking about the story of when God used Moses to part the Red Sea. And what an incredible story. You will see today just how much the Israelites had to trust that God would save them. The Egyptians were pursuing them and there was a sea in front of them. It all seemed hopeless, but God totally came through for them. And the same God that came through for the Israelites is the one that we can trust to come through for us. So today we're saying every day I can trust Jesus. We're going to start things off by singing a song together. So go ahead, stand up, sing this out with us as loud as you can.
Every day, every page written for me by the love of Jesus Christ. So listen up now. I'm living out loud. Jesus, let my life be your story. We're singing out, yeah. You're the one I want, my life to celebrate. 'Cause you gave life to me. We're shouting, hey. Giving every day, living to praise your name. Jesus, let my life be your story. I'm alive to live a life that shines your light. So listen up now. I'm living out loud. Jesus, let my life be your story. Yeah, you're the one I want, my life to celebrate. 'Cause you give life to me. We're shouting, hey, giving every day, living to praise your name. Jesus, let my life be your story. Yeah, you're the one I want, my life to celebrate. 'Cause you give life to me. We're shouting, hey, living every day, living to praise your name. Jesus, let my life you can talk to me. We're shouting big, living every day, living to praise your name. Jesus, let my life be your story. Na 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 eh. Na 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 eh. Na 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 eh. Na 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 eh. Na 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 eh. Na 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 eh. Na 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 eh. Na 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 na.
You guys sounded so great. Thank you for singing with us. And now we're going to take some time to watch a Bible story together. Like I said before, we're going to be looking at the story of how God used Moses to part the Red Sea. So let's check it out.
So here's where we are in the story. The Israelites had been slaves for years and years, and they wanted out. So they cried out to God, "Rescue us!" But Pharaoh wouldn't let them go. No. So God sent some trouble to Pharaoh. First, God turned the Egyptians' river to blood, but that didn't work on Pharaoh. No. Then he made frogs invade Egypt. There were frogs everywhere. No.
Then God sent zillions of gnats and flies, but still Pharaoh wouldn't let the Israelites go.
No. So God decided to punish Pharaoh more. He sent sickness and horrible boils to appear on people's skin. No! But still Pharaoh didn't obey. So God sent hailstones, that's pieces of ice, falling from the sky. Next, he sent a swarm of locusts. Now those were like the flies and gnats, only these guys ate all the food in Egypt. And still Pharaoh said, nah. Next was complete darkness. No light. And finally God told Pharaoh that if he didn't obey and let the Israelites go, all of the firstborn in Egypt would die. Unless lamb's blood had been painted on the family's doorpost. That did it. When Pharaoh's son died because Pharaoh didn't obey, the leader finally said to the Israelites, "Go." So that very night, the Israelites left. They didn't know which way to go or where they were headed, but God had promised them something. He said, "I will show you a new way, a new land, and a new home." So, to help them out, God sent a huge cloud for the Israelites to follow. A cloud and a pillar of smoke stretched up to the sky. During the day, the cloud shaded them from the heat in the desert, and at night it glowed with warmth to keep them safe and warm while they slept. When it was time to move, the cloud moved in front of them. And when it was time to rest, the cloud stopped. The Israelites walked and walked and walked until God led his people through the desert to the edge of a great sea. They were wondering, how will we cross the water? When suddenly they heard the sound of thundering and pounding. It sounded like horse hooves. Pharaoh had changed his mind again. He wanted the Israelites back, and now Pharaoh's army was chasing after the Israelites. The Israelites didn't know what to do. They were stuck with a giant sea in front of them and an army behind them, and it was coming fast. They panicked. The water was too deep to walk through and too far and long to swim through. They didn't have boats or horses, and the soldiers were getting closer and closer and closer. But Moses told them, "God will make a way for us to escape." And then something strange happened, something they had never seen before. The cloud moved behind the people and hid them from the Egyptians. God told Moses to raise his hands and his staff, and God sent a strong wind to blow on the water. The wind blew all night long, It blew some of the water to the left and some to the right until there were two towering walls of water, and right in the middle was dry land. The Israelites took a step, and another step, and another step, until all of the Israelites had walked right through, right where all those enormous waves had been. God had rescued the Israelites again, and it wouldn't be the last time he did that. God would save them again, once and for all. But that comes later, and I can't wait for you to hear that story.
Wow, what an incredible story. Isn't God so cool? It all looked hopeless for the Israelites, but God was able to make a way to deliver them from the Egyptians. And the same God that delivered the Israelites from their hopeless situation wants to deliver you from your hopeless situation. So now we're going to hear more about how this Bible story points to Jesus from our good friend, Pastor Andrew.
Hey everyone, Pastor Andrew here. We're wrapping up the story of how God rescued his people from the land of Egypt, how he split open the Red Sea and led his people safely across, saving them. This is one of the most amazing stories in all of the Bible. It's one of those stories that will be talked about in the Bible again and again. But remember, this isn't just a story of what God did for some group of people on the other side of the world a long time ago. This story points to Jesus, about how God and Jesus came to rescue us. You see, the children of Israel were in bondage. Yeah, kind of like this. They were slaves to Pharaoh, king of Egypt. Their lives were miserable. Maybe you can relate to this. Maybe you felt like you've been tied up in bondage to fear of being afraid, to feeling nervous or anxious. Maybe you felt tied up by sickness or loneliness, or feeling like you're no good. That's bondage. The children of Israel cried out to God, and God chose to use Moses to free them. After Pharaoh was finally worn down by God, he let God's people go. Yeah, they were now free, and maybe you've experienced something similar. Maybe you prayed and asked God to free you from that sickness, loneliness, or fear, and he did. You can imagine how the children of Israel felt. But after being free for just a little bit, Pharaoh's mind changed. He gathered up his army and he came after God's people. And there they were, God's people, trapped. The Red Sea on one side, Pharaoh's army on the other side. And it seemed hopeless for God's people. There was nothing they could do to escape. I'm sure that some imagined being killed. Others imagining their lives again as a slave. And again, I know some of you can relate. You know that feeling of thinking that fear, that sickness, that bondage is gone, only to find yourself facing it again. And that's awful. But here's where we can all relate. No matter who you are or what has happened in your life, there's one form of bondage that we have all faced: being slaves to sin. All of us were born as slaves to sin, going our way instead of God's way. Sin bound us. It tied us up, eventually leading us to death. Not just our body dying, but spiritual death, being separated from God. We have all sinned. We've all gone our own way. And sin is a terrible master. So how do we get out of this bondage? Well, we can't. Part of the problem is that some of us view our sin, going our own way, as no big deal. We think that it's fine. We can do whatever we want as long as it doesn't hurt anyone. We get to choose what's right for us. And without even knowing it, sin has already trapped you, enslaved you, leading you further and further down the path of death. For others, we know that our sin is a big deal. So we're trying to do everything we can to stay away from it. We try to be very good all the time to prove to God that we're good enough on our own. But no matter how hard we try, we're never good enough. We can't free ourselves. We're trapped. On the bank of the Red Sea, God's people were trapped also. They saw that there was nothing they could do, and they were right. So what does Moses say? He tells the people, "Don't be afraid. Stand firm, and you will see the Lord save you today. Do you see those Egyptians? You will never see them again. The Lord will fight for you. Just be still." Then Moses raises his staff. God parts the waters, and the people cross over in dry land into safety. The Egyptian army chases after, but then God closes up the waters of the sea, defeating Pharaoh and his army. God delivered his people from their bondage. So what about our bondage? Well, when we realize that our sin is a big deal and there's nothing we can do about it, this is when we can allow God to set us free. Israel was freed by Pharaoh, king of Egypt, being thrown into the sea and destroyed. But we are freed by Jesus, the true king, throwing himself into the sea of our own sin. On the cross, Jesus made us a path to freedom through our sea of sin by taking our place of bondage to sin and death. How do we get free from sin? You can't, but Jesus did. Would you see your sin for how terrible it really is? Would you see that you can't make this sin go away on your own? Would you let Jesus set you free? Would you give your life over to him and make him your king? And if you already have, here's a thought I want to leave with you. When Israel got to the other side of the Red Sea, they sang a song to God, thanking him for setting them free. That's like all of Exodus chapter 15. And that's my challenge to you. Would you take time to pause to remember the God that saved you? Think of your sin. Think of all the times that you went your own way. Think of how you tried to save yourself and how Jesus still came to rescue you by dying in your place. Think of how he came back to life to give you new life. And when you think of this, your response should be to thank him, to worship him for rescuing you. Every day, would you remind yourself how he brought you out of bondage?
I hope that you enjoyed today's story. Sometimes it can be hard to make the right choice, but following God's plan is always best. This week, I want to challenge you. While you're learning from home, find something that you can do to help the grown-ups in your house. Maybe you can do the dishes, take out the trash, maybe even help with dinner. But whatever you choose, do it with a great attitude. Have a good week, and I'll see you next time.